I landed a job at a great place, a little boutique studio called VFX, and got to share an office space with Darren Aronofsky's production company and cut my teeth on Black Swan and Wes Anderson's films, Moonrise Kingdom and Fantastic Mr. Fox. And it was just like kind of surreal.
We've been called a lot of things. And we're inspired by everything around us, including each other. The individuals that have inspired me the most create beauty and positive change. To me, that's the highest form of art, and it deserves the loudest praise. This is Shout Out, the art of self-expression. On this episode of Shout Out, the VFX producer responsible for the amazing compositing and visual cleanup work on CBS's Bull, Wes Anderson's Moonrise Kingdom, and Darren Aronofsky's Black Swan, Greg Silverman.
Coming from New York, there's like a certain way that we move, either walk and talk. Coming out here, I thought in LA that it was like people slept until noon and they're down by the beach. Meanwhile, in the entertainment biz, people are hustling, and arguably harder than those in New York, around the clock. It required some heavy visual effects, and coming from a film background to jump into TV was like a really smooth transition where you could take some of that filmic skill set where you could seamlessly integrate and do it in volume with a short turnaround, coming in and doing big things. And I definitely grew a lot in my position and title, and also in my responsibility and exposure. So Scorpion was an incredible vehicle to get me out here and to shine. It's easy to form a level of complacency when you have the recurring success. There is no ceiling. That's the thing, is that you're only limited to your perception of how great you can be.
Greg, how are you doing?
I'm great, man.
I'd like to start off you're a creative guy. I've known you to do compositing, producing, lots of creative stuff. We went to school together. Where did this path begin for you?
Getting into Full Sail or
before? What kicked it off? What was the catalyst?
I always liked to watch Ren and Stimpy, and I would draw pictures of Ren and Stimpy. And from there, just my folks were like, oh, he loves to draw. He's good at it. I took art classes. I went to school for fine arts. And I dropped out of school because I don't think I was disciplined or emotionally mature enough to do 4 years of college. And upon my umpteenth pizza delivery, I said, I should probably, start an actual career path. So then I just decided to sign up for Full Sail, and really lucky to have met the people such as yourself along the trail. And this has been a journey in its own regard, my professional career. But from way back in the beginning, like Mickey Mouse, and Ren and Stimpy, of course. I used to love Wolverine. From X-Men. That was my guy.
You were drawing Ren and Stimpy. You're into comics. This seems like a very familiar kind of gateway into the creative arts, is just comics, cartoons.
Yeah, as a kid, in the late 80s and the early 90s, from Mortal Kombat to Street Fighter to every cartoon, we were kind of spoiled. Ninja Turtles, we had it all.
Yeah.
So there was always something to draw. And didn't have to worry about being anatomically correct. Just bust out the crayons and the markers and go to town.
So you took a massive leap going from, pizza delivery guy to going to Full Sail. Was there any kind of advice or did you get inspired by something outside of just like your normal routine?
Well, you know, when you're junior and senior in high school, you know, you have your little list of the schools that are like a reach, and then the schools that are, you know, like a community college. It's more safe, local, you know, could almost guarantee that you're going to get into it. But Full Sail would always send me flyers, and I never took them seriously. My grandma and grandpa were in Florida, so it was kind of in the back of my head, like, oh, if I were down there, I could see them. And you know, it's funny though, because knowing that it was a 2-year bachelor's degree, it's like I think it was just clever marketing, really. You know, I felt like I was behind, and in order to get the degree, I was like, this sounds like a good way to kind of jumpstart things. And I remember doing the tour of Full Sail in my senior year of high school and saying, oh, this is cool. But I think it was intimidating then in 2002, but then for some reason in 2005, I figured, you know, let's give it a try.
If I recall correctly, like you shifted majors, or, you know, the focus at the end. How did that journey go?
Well, that was very interesting. I'm not going to name names, but the one of the course directors on the board for compositing and scene finishing deemed my final project unpassable. When I put my blood, sweat, and tears into it, it was devastating. I'll never forget running home and sinking my head into the pillow and crying about how I wasn't going to be able to walk with my class. That was my big thing. After 21 months of developing these relationships through the projects on the team and just going through it, right? It was like a class of 30 that got whittled down to like 8 people. And to not be able to walk with them was such a big deal. I made an animation degree, reel after that, walked, but got my job with my failing projects. So it was kind of like, you know what? I'm almost glad that I got a second reel out of the deal, because it was only a few extra months to create that reel and going through that process. And then meeting a whole nother class of people was also great, because some of those people I'm still friends with today. Yeah, that was interesting. And wasn't as uncommon as you might want to believe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I heard that story a lot while we were there, and everyone got tested pretty good. Okay, so after graduation, you and I are at SIGGRAPH, see each other randomly, didn't know that, you know, we were going to be there. What happened after that?
That was the haircut and the 50 demo reels and I think I had a suit on one day. Was just passing it out, shaking hands, trying to get in. Went back home, the house I grew up in, and sent that reel out to South America, Australia, Melbourne, wherever, Singapore, Bulgaria. I was willing to work for nothing anywhere. And after, I think, almost a month of looking for work, I found a listing that said you need 5 years of experience minimum. We're in Brooklyn, we're hiring, we're a studio based out of LA. And I was like, what do I have to lose? So I gave them the whole shtick. I'll sweep your floors, I'll work for nothing. And I landed a job at a great place, a little boutique studio called VFX, and got to share an office space with Darren Aronofsky's production company, and cut my teeth on Black Swan and Wes Anderson's films, Moonrise Kingdom and Fantastic Mr. Fox. And it was just like kind of surreal. I met so many awesome people in there, and just had to, like, some of the best learning experiences that school could never teach you. So notches on the belt and tools on that belt too, out the wazoo. So yeah, I got spoiled, but I guess willingness is really what it comes down to, like willingness to work for very little in a place that's like half an hour away from where I grew up. So yeah, it was kind of awesome.
Yeah, it sounds pretty incredible. And I remember you telling me, you were doing effects for, Darren Aronofsky and, Moonrise Kingdom. I'm a huge Wes Anderson fan, so I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. Now you're out in LA, right?
Yeah, July will be 7 years in this city. But yeah, I found a gig that was my in to become a card-holding union member of the Art Directors Guild. So I've held a job with CBS. Pat myself for that one, vested in that pension program. I hope pensions are still a thing when I'm 65 and eligible to take it. But yeah, the cloud that comes with it and the connections is it's special. But the show that I'm on right now is canceling at the end of the season. So come May, I'm looking at other options to, and they're not necessarily exclusive to visual effects. So yeah, the future is it's an interesting place. The present is quite an interesting place as well, as we speak on Zoom.
Like, what kind of projects have you worked on for CBS?
Well, I came out here for this show called Scorpion, which is something of like a Scooby-Doo. We're trying to find out who's the mastermind of this plot. That, it's always a potential catastrophe of something in outer space, something underwater, something on a train, something on a boat, something in a plane, something in a bus, something, and they're all a group of like brainiacs that could solve any of these crazy predicaments that they're in. And a lot of the times connecting the dot, 99% of connecting the dots involved an explosion or a car comp or a screen comp or you name it. So it was a real appealing position, not only because it was my entry into a trade union, but also it required some heavy visual effects. And coming from a film background to jump into TV was like a really smooth transition where you could take some of that filmic skill set where you could seamlessly integrate and do it in volume with a short turnaround. So I felt like I was like coming in and doing big things. And I definitely grew a lot in my position and title, and also in my responsibility and exposure. So Scorpion was an incredible vehicle to get me out here and to shine. That said, this world of television is quite an interesting place. That show lasted, I came onto it the second season. It went 4 seasons, so that's 3 years. Our location went from Burbank to Sherman Oaks, and then the other show, I think it went from one place to another. It was only 2 locations. But then that show canceled, and I gravitated onto another show, which was a courtroom procedural, which did not need the visual effects that a Scorpion needed, but it still needed visual effects. So I've been floating on that show for 2, 3, this is 4 years now on this show. So it's, there's always something to be done, whether it's a split screen or a beauty fix or a set extension, a car comp and screens. They have a courtroom, mock courtroom, which always has a screen. So you could guarantee at least 3, 4, 5 shots in there every episode. And that show shoots in New York. It's almost done shooting. It's going to be sad when that one wraps, because there's some really special people on there. That's part of me as I ramble on. This is potentially the end of my TV stint. Who knows what the future holds, but it's been an interesting ride working in television for nearly as long as I've worked on film stuff and all my work in New York. But this has been quite the experience, and television is it's a ride. It's a lot of just the volume of work. You send your list of credits when someone asks what you worked on. You say, look at this IMDB credit. Look at this one. Look at this one. And then when the TV show's on, it's like episodes 1 through 20, it's 1 year of work is like a whole of all these credits, and you're just like, you look back and like, it's kind of like that feeling now in quarantine when you look at the clock, you're like, how the hell did it become 5 o'clock already? How the hell did I do all that work and all that in that little bit of a time? We're just cranking them out, working on 3 episodes at any given moment, finishing one in the belly of another and starting another. It's a lot. But I got a shout out though, while we're talking about TV, my supervisor and homie Ty, where he's been incredible partner to work with ever since I've come out here. We're a 2-man team at this point. I've gone from a team of 4 down to 3, and stayed 3. But for this last season, they got rid of they didn't want to hire the supporting artist. So I've had a lot of weight on my shoulders, and between myself as the producing artist and my partner as the supervisor, we've been tag teaming this, and it's a real source of pride to say that I've earned the trust of my partner in crime. So shout out Ty.
It sounds like you're at a transition, you're coming up to one.
Yeah.
If you could write your future, what would you be doing? Dream job, dream situation.
I keep talking about pride of carrying this card and these years of working on the show and holding the job. And one source of pride is being in a position where I can afford to buy a home. But now we talk about, and a lot of these things come into perspective in the last couple of years, the preciousness and value of time. And for me, it's not so much the next step professionally or investing. You can go on and on about making a move, but for me, it's self-care. I think sitting in front of a computer for the last 13 years, it's crazy to say. It hasn't been the best on my body. I'm in great shape, but as I come closer to 40, I'm like, you know what? I think come May when we wrap, I'm gonna get out of Dodge, pack up my place, put some stuff in storage, and it's not a dream job or the next job or even the next place. It's I'm fortunate to have family in New York, here in Los Angeles, and in Florida. So I'm likely going to spend some time in New York, some time in Florida, treating myself right, really investing in my health. I think that's paramount, because without that, where are we going?
Right. It reminds me, I've recommended this a couple of times on the show, but have you read Julia Cameron's The Artist Way?
I have not. I have my notebook right here.
The reason why I bring it up is this is exactly in line with something that she talks about, where it's like, from her perspective, she's like, I don't know where we get this idea as artists that we have to be almost like drill sergeants. Like, you have to show up, you have to do it every day. And she's like, and consistency is important. It's very important. But the point that you just made of like self-care and doing things that feed you, that feed your soul, and you have to be drawing upon actual experience to make anything worth value that other people connect with. And so she hammers that point in so hard that she's like, go out, look at somebody else's art, go do something for you, take a long walk. And pretty much everything you were just talking about and how important that is. And I'm excited for you just to hear that, because it sounds like you're recognizing that already. And you're like, okay, it's that time that I need to pause. I know I can come back to this, but like recharge, really.
Yeah, coming back to this, that's the scary one. I've built a strong support system through my network professionally, through my spiritual support group as well, practicing my determination for myself and surrounding myself with others who are encouraging me has been a godsend. But with in regards to what you're saying, one of the umpteenth billion webinars on Zoom that I've been to was a Foundry example of how Nuke is building automation tools with AI/machine learning that's going to eliminate the need for a roto artist, that will eliminate all these processes that provide us with work are slowly but surely becoming computerized, and I believe there will always be a demand for a film, but will there be as much demand for a compositor, for a lighter, for a rigger, for match move artists? There's so many little micro niche positions of computer animation specialists, but yeah, it's scary, but I like to think that I'm in the right place in the entertainment capital, carrying that card. But yeah, I think what you're saying about referencing Coleman, I think her name was, the book, and stepping away and taking a look at others' work. Once you have a good perspective on self, because I get lost in the masochist world of just slaving away at the computer, stepping away and getting even closer touch with myself, and then seeing some other work, I think could be refreshing, and when it's time to come back to it, there might be a bit more of a crystallization of what kind of work I'll be looking to take on. There's lots of work out there right now for people in VFX, but what do you want to do is the real question, right?
Yeah.
What's really going to fill your heart and soul from the hours of 9 to 5?
Yeah, and to your point, you have gained a lot of momentum, and you've built a foundation, a network of friends, and it is kind of scary to feel like if you stepped away even just for a short bit, that things might not be as strong. But I'm a true believer in the fact that you can still recharge while you're moving forward. So maybe the move there is take a break, but then also while you're resting, keep building the network, keep building the relationships, and keep some coals in the fire while you're doing that.
Yeah, hang on to that camera. But that's the thing, though. I feel like the ring rust isn't so real for people in the VFX world. Sure, there'll be a trick or two to learn, or even a piece of software to pick up. But I'm not talking about walking away for a year. It's probably a couple of months, and then I'll get the itch.
Yeah, and I actually just had an interview with Eric Hart, and he was talking about how, he was kind of getting burned out on 3D. And for a while there, he said it's like for a year, I picked up a DSLR and started taking photos. And he's like, and that was refreshing. And I did that. And he's like, I was still obviously working, 9 to 5 doing CG and leading teams. He's like, but the photography, that was something that was just fun. And then he could pour himself all the way into that. And then after a year, he was like, then I felt recharged to go back to doing 3D. So I think that's also important for us as designers, as artists, to continually experiment, explore, and stay curious.
Right. Do your own thing with ownership. So it's you could see something from the process soup to nuts. Like, I thought of this, conceived it, put it on paper, or on a camera, on a sensor, doesn't matter what it's on. I've picked up cooking. I mean, I think we all have had to do it a little bit in quarantine lifestyle.
If your life was a movie, what would the theme song be?
Chariots of Fire.
Oh, you're a Chariots of Fire. Oh
yeah,
man,
yeah, with grace, graceful.
Yeah.
Even when you stumble, you gotta play it off a little bit with some grace. Yeah.
Oh, I love that answer, man. That's beautiful. Yeah. What is your favorite movie?
It's gonna change every day.
Top 5.
I love Raging Bull is one of my top is in my top 5 for sure. Damn, you put me on the spot. What do I love?
Or we can go top 10 if you want to just start like fireballing a lot.
Firing them off. Yeah, I don't know why Forrest Gump comes to me, but
that's a great one.
Like anything that's made me cry has done it. I love Wall-E. Like that's one of my favorites. And also like the memory of the film in the theater, Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah.
These are big temple films. I didn't think that I was going to be so cliche in my answer.
I need a little more obscurity here.
Stand Up a Woman. There you go. Don't Look Up was incredible. Did you see it?
Don't Look Up.
Adam McKay's new film.
I have not seen it.
He did The Big Short. He did Vice.
I have not seen it. I am a huge fan of his work, though.
Yeah, this movie was important. I don't think for all of the reasons why those who are making posts about it is the reason why I think it's so special. I mean, those reasons for sure, as far as like a wake-up call and that. But his use of the medium, I find that in today's day and age, like with music, I mean, look at these like NFTs and fine art, right? The masses are so reachable, and the medium is a lot easier, I think objectively, to create by way of Pro Tools now, or by way of a DSLR now, by way of Photoshop now. Whereas before you were with a palette knife, or you could speak to that. But his usage of the medium, he'll pause the frame. I mean, this is an edit, but he's a filmmaker, so I feel like you have to give him this. He'll pause the frame. He'll throw like a graphic overlay on there. He'll play with time. And because it's on a streaming service, and because it has that incredible cast, that's a huge responsibility to develop those characters and to use them with purpose and to tell a story. And have it be like a slice of time in that it could be fucking obnoxious, pardon my French, but at the same time be like very real. While it's a fantastical story, it's all too like true to life. Like and because life is so surreal right now, I feel like this film, and even The Big Short did this also, it's just like it's like an educational experience at the same time, entertainment that is the truth that it hurts. Did you see Vice?
Oh yeah.
And like talk about a look at how ugly our species can be.
Yeah.
And he does a really good job of doing that, straddling the line of I love this character, or I can't stand looking at this character and listening to them speak. I want to like push the TV off of the thing, Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver style, where he's kicking the TV and he's bouncing it and he just snaps.
Okay, so you've mentioned a lot of like creators and directors. Who are some of your inspirations, your go-to kings and queens of creation?
I have to say about that. Kings and queens. I say like I just think of my family. family. It's like just like the character that you love, but at the same time you can't stand them, and it's like the truth is right in front of you. You know, you are your family, and your family keeps it the funkiest with you. So I have to say, my brother, my sister, my niece, my sister-in-law, my sister, my cousin. Yeah, I have all the phrases from them, from my memory of my life, that just get replayed. You know, my cousins, you can do better. You can do better. My mom says, you know, when you know, you know. Right? It's like simple stuff. And yeah, those are my heroes. It's my family, I have to say. I could idolize people that I don't know on a person-to-person level, but between my dearest best friend in New York and my family, at this point in time in your life, your closest friends are your family. So yeah, my family is my, you know, I unfortunately don't have the Grammy winner from here, or the Oscar, you know, this person who received whatever accolade or created this thing. Yeah, that's inspiring, but I find that my family are the ones who have brought me closest to my best self. Let's say that.
I love that.
Yeah, for sure. My mom. Yeah.
Well done, dude.
It's true.
Yeah, that's great. Any advice you would give to someone looking to get into visual effects?
There's so many resources from like the Noman School to Full Sail to reaching out to a place like the Visual Effects Society. Shadowing somebody in the big leagues is the move, I'd say. And come May, I'll be a lot more available. So send them my way. But for the most part, you know, people will say that, find somebody and track their career and see where they've gone. And if they can do it, then you can do it. I'm more of the develop a person-to-person relationship with somebody who has some experience. I don't necessarily think that it has to be an award-winning somebody or with X amount of years or whatever of experience, but someone who's been there and been able to hold the job for some time. Yeah, isn't that a funny one, that those that you don't know might have better interests for you than those who you do know? So I would just say, go and meet new people. Go and meet new people in new places that do the things that you want to do, and pick their brains. And if they say get lost to go fly a kite, then it's a lot of people out there.
Yeah. That's great advice, because there's a story that Ethan Hawke told in an interview.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, he was like, you know, when I was young, I got into acting and I showed a little bit of promise, but then kind of went away for a couple years. He's like, but my best friend was River Phoenix.
There you go.
And he's like, in River, he's like, we both went in at the same time, and River stayed in, and he was just a year ahead of me.
R.I.P.
And his career took off. And then he was like, well, if River could do it, then I can do it. And he's like, little did I know at the time how talented River was. He's like, but just being in that vicinity and in the proximity of this guy, it made it possible in Ethan's mind. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, what the heck? I'll just go back in. Let's see how I do. And of course, he's had an amazing career. And it's sad to know how River ended. But it's just like, go out, meet new people, because when you meet a different group of people and you see how they think, you can't help for that to kind of rub off on you. And you're like, oh, that's how you're talking. That's how you do things. That's how you look at it. And then you start to kind of take on some of those traits that would push you in that direction.
Yeah, and there's a million ways to skin a cat too, right? It could be real easy to form a relationship to somebody with, I'm not gonna say bad habits, but let's just say their habits. And nobody's perfect. I think that's what we learn in our with the wisdom that we have in having years of experience doing what we do is that it's easy to form a level of complacency when you have the recurring success, but there is no ceiling. That's the thing, is that like it's only you're only locked to your limited rather to your perception of how great you can be. Coming from New York, there's like a certain like way that we move, and there's a rather walk and talk. Let's just say that. Coming out here, I thought in LA that it was like people like slept until noon and they're like down by the beach, like hippy dippy, groovy, man. Meanwhile, in the entertainment biz, people are hustling, and arguably harder than those in New York, around the clock, So the thing about it is there's so much opportunity out here because there's so many things there's so many projects that are just going on simultaneously in this city. So showing up, having a good work ethic, and just not being a weirdo, I guess, is
being
like
likable.
Also, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Knowing when to shut up. Like, also don't ask too many questions. That's one thing that I've learned in working in television is don't run. If you're on a set in the office, if you're like moving with haste, then it looks like you're scared. So if you're operating in fear, you're not going to have respect. So don't run. That's my big piece of advice for anybody who's new in the industry, working in production. Like you're asking, what's your advice to somebody who's, trying to cut their teeth in the big leagues? Is don't run, don't ask too many questions, have some confidence, walk and talk with some confidence, and be confident in that your work ethic is going to speak for itself.
Is there anything that you do to boost your confidence or to go into that kind of a situation? Because I can imagine somebody, first getting into that kind of, you're in television. This is the big time.
Yeah.
There'd be imposter syndrome, or was there anything that you did while you were transitioning into that helped?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, right? Because it's kind of a roll of the dice who you're going to be in front of, who are you going to work for, right? Because those, no matter what, there could be somebody who runs a show. I won't say rules, but the climate in any given show can be that of one of love or that of one of fear. How would you decide to rule your kingdom, Phil? Like, would you run it by way of putting fear in others, or would it be a loving environment? To instill the confidence, though, my thing is meditate. So if I could control my heart rate by breathing, simply put, and I could control my reaction to things, and Full Sail did a lot of this for me, is by way of just being open to criticism, because we all know that a lot of this criticism is not constructive. It's just, that's not the way I want it. This is the way I want it. So like developing the skills to make it the producer's idea or make it the filmmaker or editor's idea is how we get what we want. If I tell you that, it's just like a level of I won't say eloquence or sales or pitching somebody, but if you want something bad enough, you'll make it, you'll negotiate it in, this is all negotiation tactics. But yeah, meditation is the way for me to stay centered and eyes on the prize. 'Cause, I feel like it's easy to get caught up in your, I could speak to that. I get caught up in my feelings for sure. But having the work just be compositing in visual effects is kind of a godsend for me, because I could put on the headphones and just do the work. And I think that's why I love compositing, is because I am doing a Sudoku for 12 hours, for 8 hours, however long the day is, and setting them up and knocking them down.
Yeah. No, I love that, that conversation about meditation, because that's something that I think I did not have that skill I started way too late in the game. What I realized is that art was actually my breathing regulator. But I found
Mm.
that out way after. I wasn't self-aware of that.
Hmm.
My younger brother, who I think you've met,
Yeah.
Nate,
Mhm.
he noticed when I would put my headphones on and like I'd paint or I'd be doing digital art or whatever. He's like, your breathing gets so steady and even.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize this. He didn't tell, like, he had told me, but I didn't realize how important that was, quite honestly, until my kids came.
Huh.
And then I was stressed because I'm a new father. I don't want to mess this up. They're screaming at me. I don't
Mhm.
know. And I hit the lowest low I ever have in my life. And I'm like, what is going on? Well, I wasn't creating art.
Mm.
I wasn't meditating. I had no like breathing techniques. So all these things. So I started meditating. And then what my brother had said in an actual meditation session came to me. It was like,
Oh yeah.
you have been meditating your entire life when you've been creating art, and you stopped doing that. So
Mm.
of course now you're feeling a little bit better with meditation, but what you actually need to do is get back to art. But to your point, in situations I've found where it's like you're called upon to be creative
Mhm.
and jump into this, and it's like that is a very stressful situation.
Right.
How do you counteract that? And that's what I've found is like meditation, breathing
Mhm.
is so huge, where you're like, okay, this is coming up, I can see the wave, it's
Mhm.
getting big, here
Yeah.
we go. You just start regulating that, and then
Yeah.
you can dial in your emotions. And to that point of, we're artists, we are constantly calling upon our familiarity with emotions in order
Mm.
to project or to try to grab that from somebody else. You're
Good.
creating this piece, you want to have that connection with another human being. So we're constantly like playing with that. And so
Yeah.
it becomes very difficult to regulate that, because we kind of go from 0 to 60, and to find that medium, I found nothing better than breathing,
Mhm.
meditation, doing the art itself. But you can't, that's something that I found out at Full Sail.
Mhm.
I could not create at all, didn't sound appealing to me when I was over stressed. Like in
Right.
our scripting class,
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there was a few of those for
oh
sure.
my God,
That's the other side of the brain.
yeah, I
Yeah.
just I was so far on the other side. And my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, but my wife now, she had suggested, while she was like, she had never seen me like that, I had never been like that, I was so freaked out.
Mhm.
And she was like, why don't you create some art? Oh man.
Yeah.
I
This is an outlet right now.
was
Yeah.
like, I couldn't. So
Oh,
but
you couldn't because you didn't have the time. The schedule didn't permit that.
oh, dude. Well, because when I was, and I'm going to be cutting all of this blah, blah, blah for me
No,
out.
you're good. No,
But
I like this. This is good.
no, but like I had emotionally just gone off the Richter scale. And so just the mention of art made me think of school. And what I should be doing is working on this project, which was not going well. And I could see absolutely, like, I was tunnel vision, everything is falling apart.
You weren't the only one.
Well, I know. And that's the thing. It's like, I've talked to Brian Runlet about this, and he said the exact same thing. I talked to Morrow Smith,
Yeah.
and it's like, we had really good conversations, because we were diving into this where it was like, oh man, yeah, I was battling that kind of on my own. I'm like, I think we all were, because that's what we do, right? Like
Yeah.
we're artists. We've been so isolated with us. It's us and our art, and that over and over and over again. And so to kind of branch out of that,
Mhm.
for some of us, it's hard. So I feel like I'm far better at it now, but man, back in school when I could have been, I did not have that communication skill verbally at all.
When you say communication skill, what do you mean with yourself, with the course, the teacher or the lab instructor, or with
everyone? Like, I didn't know how to articulate what was going on inside me. And so like, kind of even getting back to the reason why I started art and started creating, it was like, that was a way for me to communicate that I didn't really feel confident in just using language. And so it was like, I would reach points emotionally that I could not explain. So I'd be like, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to create this thing. And I wouldn't even know what that thing was saying. And oftentimes people would be like, whoa, like, while I was at school, this is the first time I was like completely on my own for several months. And I created this piece of art, and my mom, she looked at it, she goes, "Are you okay?" And I was like, and I kind of put on the face. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Why?" And she's like, "I'm worried for you." And I'm like, "Why?"
I need to see this piece.
I'll show you. I'll show you after, but it's like, it was a self-portrait, and she's like, "I'm concerned." And I'm like, "Why?"
Yeah.
But it's amazing that I look at it now and I'm like, I know why she's concerned. It's that I never created anything like it before. And now looking at it, I'm like, it's plain as day. But at the time, I was making the decisions of the piece just as I was drawing. I was like, oh, I'll do a self-portrait right now. So then I did a grayscale thing. And then I was like, it's kind of boring. I'd like to liven it up. Maybe he should be like an astronaut. It feels like he should have something over his head. So then I created a clear bowl.
Oh yeah, I remember this. It was
yeah. And so then it was like one thing after the other. I'm like, it feels like there's not enough to it. So then I'll put him in a straight jacket.
And so this is a fish thing going on in this?
Yeah, and then and that was the last piece. I was like, but it looks empty. He kind of looks like an astronaut, but he's not. And then I was like, oh, I'll put two fish in. And it's like, you look at it, and even now I'm like, it looks as though like I made all those decisions consciously before I even started it. I made none of those decisions consciously. And I just thought, I'm like, oh, this is a cool piece. It doesn't really mean anything. But that's like, I look at it, I'm like, I felt like I was losing it. I was all alone.
Yeah.
Like, I'm talking to myself. It's like,
this is rare, man.
It's
honestly
crazy.
This gives the work a new meaning, and honestly, value is how I would call it. Value. This conversation, by the way, should not be edited, but it's your project, so I don't want to tell you that. But in commenting on this part that you're going into about your creation and how us as artists navigate this creative field that we're in, for me, and like we all have our ways of coping. We all have our ways of traversing, going up the mountain and towards our goals or whatever we want to define as a success or, a progression. And I learned pretty early on, and this is kind of how I looked at compositing and visual effects, is that I'm not an artist, because I found as I take ownership of the work, not the art, the work, and look at it as a widget and not a piece, because they're really just parts of a puzzle that somebody else kind of put together. I'm just a hired hand to carry out someone else's vision. Taking myself and my creativity out of it made it so much easier for me to get the job done and not take work home with me. Yeah. Because that was why I cried into the pillow at Full Sail when I failed. That's why when working on a team for the ADG, I forget what they call it, but the Unreal class, that's why I was stubborn and I was defiant, and I was probably displaying lots of social anxiety and awkwardness, or just being this emotional ball rolling in and out of those sliding glass doors every day, because I didn't know what to do with myself in a room full of people that didn't know what to do with themselves, you know? So as soon as I got into the professional world around professionals that I kind of, at that point in time, like beyond admired, right? Idolized, I had to find a way to, you know, do my best and keep it moving.
You've already given a lot of props and shout outs, but anybody else that you'd love to give a shout out to?
My brother's a really good chef in Los Angeles. If anybody needs a fine cooked meal, if anybody's looking to ride a horse, my sister works at the Paddock Riding Club in Atwater Village. Love my family out to the death. As far as shout outs, I mean, my buddy Joey's out here doing data wrangling. Super proud of him. Who else is out here? There's a lot of good people, a lot of talented people out there, but I can't name names and make favorites because I love everybody. Phil Ellering, that's my shot.
Thanks, Greg. All right, man. Well, thanks again for coming on here. I really appreciate it, and we'll definitely chat again soon.
Let's do part 2, baby.
All right, man.
Shoutout is an Ellering Stories production. For more episodes, visit elleringstories.com.